What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube, and today I've got some football focus. The offseason is here. Things are happening very slowly right now. It's the slowest time of year for football, but the official NFL league year has not really started yet as far as moving players around, but I wanted to go over the Pittsburgh Steelers free agency list and talk about who we should keep, who we should cut, and who we should kind of bring in at the right price. So we have a pretty hefty list here of free agents. Not going to talk about the restricted ones or any kind of sign and trade deals or anything like that. Just going to talk about our unrestricted free agents and talk about on this list kind of which people I think played well enough for us in their contracts here to come back for another year, which guys I think are worth just letting go and letting move on to other teams, and who we could kind of bring back if the contract is favorable and let go if it's not favorable. So kind of finding ways to upgrade our positions. And Pittsburgh has a pretty hefty list of free agents at key positions. A lot of questions at the quarterback position, a lot of questions at running back, a lot of questions at wide receiver. Those really big kind of key player places have a lot of big holes and a lot of things to address. So I wanted to go over this list really quickly and just give you guys a keep, cut, or in between feeling about them and see what you guys thought overall. Pittsburgh, again, starting off playing a weaker schedule in the first half of last season, played very, very well, and then hit a couple of the Goliaths at the end of the season with a tough schedule, and we got steamrolled toward the end. Made the playoffs as a wild card, lost in the first round. It wasn't just losing the last 4 regular season games in the playoff game, losing 5 games in a row, but losing handily, getting steamrolled, getting the ball run on us, getting big plays nailed on us, not putting up any offense till we're already several touchdowns down. Just kind of a typical Steelers first round playoff exit over the last couple of years. That has kind of been our standard, no pun intended, these last couple seasons. First things first, we have all three of our quarterbacks we signed. We made a entire quarterback room change, from trading Kenny Pickett to the Eagles to letting go of Mason Rudolph, who went to start some games in Tennessee, to letting go of Mitch Trubisky, letting all 3 of our quarterbacks from last year go, bringing in 3 new guys, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and Kyle Allen, and all 3 are now free agents. So what do we do with that room now? How many wholesale changes do we make to start next season? Number one, I would say the one that's totally expendable in my opinion right now for the money that he's going to go for is Russell Wilson. I would say we've seen Russell Wilson. We've seen his highs and lows. We've seen that his highs can be higher than Justin Fields. We've seen that his lows can be lower than Justin Fields. The question now becomes, do Pittsburgh kind of go with Russell Wilson and take that first half of his season last year and think that he can take us to bigger heights? Do we go with the Justin Fields route, the more conservative but higher potential ceiling route, or do you go somewhere entirely different? On this list right away, I let go of Russell Wilson. Russell's going to command a bigger contract, I think, than we want to spend. I think we've already seen his best work behind him. I think we saw what he did those last 5 games of the season, and I think it's time to go a different route. So I would let Russell Wilson go. Justin Fields is the one I would keep as the potential starter for next season. You do want to look into bringing in other potential, competitive guys, whether it be in free agency. Obviously, you want to draft. If you think this is the draft for quarterbacks, I don't think it's a very good quarterback draft. So I wouldn't be looking to bring anybody in higher than like 3rd round. I would go 3rd, 4th round. The first couple rounds of quarterbacks in this draft are not very good in my opinion for future franchise potential. Justin Fields is the guy I'd bring back out of this room for next year. Justin, to me, again, didn't blow the doors off anything. He went 4-2 as a starter, but he was winning games. He was using his legs. He was getting better at looking downfield and running second and passing first on the end of his run. He was running at smart times. He wasn't turning the ball over. He was looking a lot more efficient. And he's still got, in my opinion, a bit of room to grow. Now, we've seen him in the league now for like 5 seasons, so I don't think that he is going to be any kind of consistent Pro Bowler. I don't think he's necessarily a franchise guy, but he's shown us enough with his athleticism in Chicago and enough with his maturity and growth in his brief time here in Pittsburgh so far. Just through 6 games, we saw that he exponentially improved from Chicago. Is he at the level we'd like him to be at for a franchise quarterback? Not right now, but he's shown growth and he's shown improvement and he's shown that he can win games and not make bad decisions with the football. So I'd bring back Justin Fields. I think he's going to come back cheaper than Russell, and I think he's got a higher ceiling than Russell. So Wilson gone, Fields returns. Kyle Allen, I'd bring him back as a backup. He's started in the league before. He's got good experience. He can put up numbers. He's a good third-string quarterback. Do I want him as my number 2? Not necessarily, but if he comes back at a vet minimum like he did this year and bring him back as a third string quarterback, I think it's worth doing. So you get him for a good price, I'd bring him back. Now for the running back room. Both of our main guys are free agents. I think Cordero Patterson might be under contract for another year, but he might come in a bit of a cap hit. I didn't see him on the running back list for free agents. I think he could be a big cap casualty for us. I don't think he played well enough to be on this roster. I don't think he should return, but I don't think he qualifies for this list because I don't think he's really a full free agent. If he is, I would let him walk. I think you can do better. He's a good veteran guy, but I think he slowed us down with carries last year because you got too many guys trying to get carries, and I don't think he performed consistently enough to be on this roster. So I'd let Cordero go. But the two main guys on this rotation, Najee and Jalen, are both free agents. Jalen is restricted, so we have first crack at Jalen. Number 1, bring Jalen back. He is no matter what you do with Najee Harris or anybody else, Jalen Warren is a very good number 2 with potential to be a number 1. He was 1A, 1B in these last 2 seasons. You could argue, especially for being an undrafted free agent, that he is the better running back than Najee Harris overall. He's the best running back on this roster for both years that he's been here, or however long he's been here. I think he's been the best overall running back. Solid pass-catching back, has power, has speed, can break tackles, and when he's healthy, he's the most consistent one on this roster for big playability. Najee Harris, I'm a big fan of Najee. You guys know that I've been a Najee defender on this channel. 4 seasons, 4,000-yard years. He's been very solid. I think he is the wrong back for this system. I don't think our play calling and our system suits what Najee does, and I think that the value for a 1,000-yard running back has gone down. Overall, having 1,000 yards with the amount of carries and the amount of games that guys play now is not as impressive as it once was. But to me, I'm still seeing a guy who breaks a lot of tackles, who runs hard. When he commits to the hole like he has these last 2 years, he runs very, very well. His yards per carry are still down, but a lot of that comes down to play calling and to offensive line that has not been consistent or healthy the entire time Najee's been here. I think the line has a lot to do with this. So for me, I would like to bring Najee Harris back. Even if the contract gets a little expensive, my personal taste, I'd bring back both Najee and Jalen Warren, and I would get rid of Cordero Patterson. What I think they're going to do, especially based on value for running backs after what happened this year with how well Derrick Henry played, how well Saquon Barkley played, how well Josh Jacobs played, how well Aaron Jones played, how well Joe Mixon played. This was the year for the running back that got spurned by their original team and went somewhere else and got paid like they should have and exploded, especially Saquon and Henry, right? Saquon had an all-time running back year and probably reset the market for running backs like he should have. That being said, I would bring back Najee and Jalen. I think they're definitely going to bring back Jalen. I don't see Pittsburgh bringing back Najee. I would. They will not. Jalen Warren is going to be our 1A or 1B on this roster next season with probably a draft pick. I think they're going to target a running back in the first 2 rounds. Ashton Genty, I've heard Cam Scatterbo. I've heard many names right now. I have not done my draft scouting just yet. I'll bring you guys a draft video later. I could see there being a good chance we get Genty in the 2nd round or another 2nd round running back. So Pittsburgh is going to pair another young, high pedigree running back with Jalen Warren, in my opinion. Wide receivers. We got a bunch of guys who are fillers. A bunch of guys who are decent. They're fine. They're NFL veterans. They're smart players. They can make plays occasionally, but they're not going to be game breakers. They're not going to be consistent 100-yard kind of players. They're not going to be guys that get open on their own a whole lot. We have 4 big wide receiver free agents here, and the one that I'm going to bring back is probably going to surprise you on this team. We have Mike Williams, who we traded for midway through this season. We have Van Jefferson, who we brought in on a 1-year deal last season to be our wide receiver 2. We have Scotty Miller, who we signed last offseason, and Ben Skoranek, who we signed on the practice squad and brought up to the main roster. Those 4 guys that were in our rotation last year are all free agents now. I would only bring back one of them. If the price is right for Mike Williams, he's a guy that I think if you get him on a really cheap deal, I think he's worth bringing back because he does have big play pedigree and longevity at a successful level as a wide receiver too. He did enough in San Diego / Los Angeles Chargers. He did enough there, in my opinion, that he could be a good wide receiver too if you get him on a very cheap price. I think he's going to command some money, and that to me is not worth it. He's looked to be very one-dimensional at this point, just running down the field for deep balls. He can do that well, but he's slowing down a bit. He's getting older. He's been consistently injured. He didn't perform very well his last year or so in the Chargers. He didn't perform last year with the Jets at all, and he did very minimal stuff for us. He got one nice deep ball in the playoff game, and he got one game-winning deep ball his first week here. Other than that, part of it does come down to targets. He's better, I think, than we showcased. But again, for the money he's going to get, I don't think Mike Williams is worth bringing back. We can sign another wide receiver too, or another deep ball guy that's worth that. Van Jefferson, he's fine. Again, solid like fourth receiver, but he's not a wide receiver too. He's not worth bringing back on this roster. We can do better. I think he only got us, 280 yards this year? 2 touchdowns? I think we can do a lot better than that as a wide receiver 2/3. He did not perform to the level we would have liked. Scotty Miller's another guy, underrated for a guy that size, is physical for a smaller guy, can be a deep ball guy, can catch outside routes, but he's very undersized. And we already have some undersized guys on this roster in Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson, who we're going to bring back next year and put in the rotation if Roman can get healthy. Calvin obviously was a good second option, but you want somebody better. So I would let go of Mike, Jefferson, and Scotty, unless Mike Williams comes very cheap. But I would let those 3 guys go. Ben Skoranek is the one name that I'd bring back because he's going to be a fifth or sixth wide receiver on your team. He's not going to be a guy you put in your receiving rotation. He's in there basically to block and play special teams. He did that very well last year. He came in and caught some balls when he was targeted. He can catch when he needs to. He's got a bit of a body on him. The dude's physical on the outside. He can run guys off on streaks. He can block in the run game, and he can tackle on special teams. He forced a fumble last year on special teams. I like what Ben Skoranek brings to the table. He's going to be a vet minimum guy. He's not going to require much money, and he's going to play on 2 sides of the ball, and he's going to give you good value at the bottom end of your depth chart. So I like Ben Skoranek. Next year, one tight end's a free agent. That's Michael Pruitt. We signed him in the offseason. He's an Arthur Smith guy. I want to get rid of the Arthur Smith guys. I know that sounds dumb, but people have talked about how Arthur Smith got his way with bringing in certain players that fit his system this year. In my opinion, we saw that didn't work out. He put the third-string running back Cordero Patterson in the game too much, taking too many carries away from Najee and Jalen, breaking up the flow, and didn't deliver enough for us to make it worth putting him into our system. I think Michael Pruitt is the same. Nothing against Michael Pruitt, solid guy in Tennessee, played well in Tennessee. I think he was even in Atlanta with Arthur Smith as well. He's a decent receiver, decent blocker. He's fine, but we don't need him. We have our big receiving tight end in Freiermuth. We have a 2-way guy that can block and started to get involved in the receiving room and the big freak in Washington. We've got an underrated guy who can play fullback or block or run or catch that wasn't used at all last year in Connor Hayward. You guys know who Cam is. Connor Hayward wasn't used last year. He got used so little last year, I forgot how to say his name. I would use the 3 guys we already have in our system that are all very diverse and talented. We don't need Michael Pruitt. We rely less on him, shrink that room a little bit, and use the guys we have a little better. I would let go of Michael Pruitt. Dan Moore. Dan Moore is the number 1 guy I'd get rid of on this roster. Dan Moore had a good first half of his last season, his best first half of a season of his entire career, and then he went on to play some elite talent and got destroyed week after week with multi 3-sack games, one of the sack and pressure leaders in the NFL given up this year. It's time for Dan Moore to move on. Not only is Dan Moore hurting us, and for the most part played miserably here in about half of his time in Pittsburgh, but he also is keeping other guys like Fatanu and especially Broderick Jones on the wrong side of the line. You get rid of Dan Moore, not only are you upgrading on that side of the line, but you're moving Broderick Jones over to his rightful place at left tackle. So you can now get rid of Dan Moore, get the young guy that you traded up to draft in Broderick Jones over to his natural spot, and see what he has while you bring Troy Fatanu back in to play it right. So now you're putting everyone in their right spots, and you're seeing what you have in your former first-round pick. You've seen what you have in Dan Moore, and by and large, while there's been good moments, he's not good overall, and he's taking up space on our line. Get rid of Dan Moore. Nextly, Calvin Anderson. Depth guy, not a big deal. I would let him go. You can do better for a backup lineman. let go of Calvin Anderson. Haven't seen him much, not worth bringing back. Ryan McCollum is a guy you do want to bring back. I think he's our backup center. He can play, kind of swing around the line a little bit. He's got some positional diversity. He can play on different spots in the line, but you really need a good backup center, especially with the injuries and Zach Frazier coming in as a rookie last year. I would bring back Ryan McCollum. He's going to take vet minimum salary. He's not going to take much. Here's another guy, much like Najee Harris, who what I would do and what they will do are different things. They're going to get rid of Najee. I would not. If they're going to get rid of James Daniels, I would not. If you can get James Daniels for a decent price, absolutely bring him back. I think he's been our second best lineman here over the course of the last couple years alongside Seumalo. He's been a very good veteran presence. The problem is he's getting older, he's getting injured, he's coming off of a long-term injury this year, and he's going to require some money. He's a guy that has been proven in the NFL. He's going to get paid quite a bit, and he's coming off of an injury here, so they will let him go. I say let him go unless you can get him for a cheap enough price. If he comes at a premium, let him go. But if there's some kind of a bargain here we can do, pairing him with, say, Amalu with the other three young guys, I like that. So it depends on his price. I try and re-sign him if you can. If he's going to require money, let him go. Nate Herbig, bring him back if you can. He's coming off a season-long injury, so it's not going to be imperative that you bring him back. I'd bring him back as like a 6 or 7 lineman. He's a good piece of depth. I like him and Spencer Anderson kind of as our backups on this team, so bring him back if you can. But if you don't, I'm not heartbroken because he's a backup and he's coming off an injury, so he's not imperative. But bring him back if you can. Max Sharping is another guy like Calvin Anderson. You haven't seen him much. Let him go. You can do better. You can cut him. Isaiah Loudermilk, I would bring Loudermilk back. I like what I've seen from Loudermilk as the right end kind of depth piece behind Cam Hayward. I like Loudermilk as our like 6th offensive lineman. Could you do better? Maybe. Yeah, probably. But that being said, he's a guy that makes plays when he's in there. He doesn't get a ton of time. When he does, he's not a game breaker, but he's a solid tackle guy. He can get some pressure for a guy that size. He's good in the run game. He's around the ball when he gets in. I think that's worthy of a veteran minimum contract. Bring this guy back. He's a good 5 to 6 guy. He's not going to be a full-time starter, but as a guy who comes off the bench and can plug and play occasionally, and he can start when guys are injured, I think he's good enough. I like him, and I bring him back. He bats some balls. He's good in the run game, and he's a big-bodied guy. You need guys like that in the NFL that are proven to make plays occasionally. I'd bring him back. Jeremiah Moon, I'd bring him back as the 4th outside linebacker. Because you're going to be letting go of the guy from Green Bay we traded for in the offseason. He's a $13.5 million cap hit or something like that. He's going to take between $11 and $13 million this offseason. So the Green Bay signing is going to be gone. So you need a 4th outside linebacker behind the 3 guys you have now. So I'm going to go ahead and sign Jeremiah Moon as our 4th outside linebacker pass rusher. Landon Roberts, I would bring him back as an inside linebacker as like your 3/4. You obviously have your 2 main starters at this point. Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson are going to be your starters. You obviously have Cole Holcomb under contract as well. If he's not going to take too much money, he can be a good 3rd guy if he's healthy, but he's still a question mark, so you still want another veteran presence out there behind Wilson and Queen. Landon Roberts has played very consistently that second half of the season. He was probably our most consistent, or I would say at least the last couple games, he was our most consistent inside linebacker. He's a very good downhill run stuffer. I would bring a Landon Roberts back. Tyler Medikevich, another inside linebacker, I'd bring him back as well. Special teams guy. He's going to make plays on special teams. He knows our system. He's been around for a while. He's not going to play defensively. You don't want to see him on the field in pass coverage. He's horrible with that. But as a special teamer, you want him back as depth as a veteran piece. So I'd bring back Medikevich. Secondary-wise, Dante Jackson. This one's interesting. It depends what his price tag is going to be. I'd bring him back, but I would not bring him back as a second corner. So JPJ is our 1st outside corner. I'd be looking to do something with outside corner number 2. CB2, I'd be looking to make a change at. Jackson got 5 interceptions this year. He was around the ball a lot. Good turnover guy. Didn't play well against elite competition later in the season. Started getting banged up, but he's got a lot of speed. He's a solid player. I would sign him back for a decent contract to be the 3rd cornerback, the 1st slot corner. I would let him be number 3, and I would let go of Cam Sutton. Cam Sutton proved that he came over from Detroit as the number 1 guy. He's not a starting outside guy. Came in on the inside, missed 10 games this year, looked very, very shaky. He's getting older. Missing that time really hurt his position on this team. He didn't play very well. I think let go of Cam Sutton, sign Dante Jackson, and move him to the 3rd guy. Now you've got JPJ, and you've got a second outside guy, whether you sign a corner or whether you draft a corner. JPJ and another young outside guy are your 1 and 2. Move Dante Jackson to your 3rd corner. Cut Cam Sutton. Your other inside corner is Beanie Bishop, who played well at the end of last year. Now you've got Dante and Beanie as your inside guys, and you've got Corey Trice to play on the outside as a future guy who's getting healed up and has a lot of good physical traits. Now you've got a young core that are all in the right place. So sign back Dante as your 3rd corner and cut Cam Sutton. Re-sign C.J. Henderson. He's a veteran. Haven't gotten to see him play much here in Pittsburgh, but he has a nice pedigree from Jacksonville. Physical outside guy. I'd bring him back on a cheap contract and see what he can do. James Pierre I would let go of. You guys know what I think of James Pierre at this point. He is not an outside option. You're going to draft one or sign one along with JPJ. You've got Trice. There's no reason to have Pierre. If Pierre's playing, we're in trouble. I'd cut him. I'd also cut DeMonte KZ. Bad season for him. We can do better for a 3rd safety. We have the 2 starting guys, obviously, so we don't need KZ as our 3rd guy. He's not worth the money that he's taking, and his play is falling off, so I'd cut him. So real quick to recap what I would do, cut Russell Wilson, or let Russell Wilson go, bring back Justin Fields, bring back Kyle Allen, bring back Najee Harris for the right price, bring back Jalen Warren, cut Mike Williams, cut Van Jefferson, cut Scotty Miller, bring back Ben Skoranek, cut Michael Pruitt, cut Dan Moore, cut Calvin Anderson, bring back Ryan McCollum, bring back James Daniels, but only for a good price, bring back Nate Herbig, cut Max Sharping, bring back Loudermilk, bring back Moon, bring back Landon Roberts, bring back Menikavich, bring back Dante Jackson as a 3rd corner, cut Cam Sutton, bring back C.J. Henderson, cut James Pierre, cut DeMonte KZ. There is your long-form Pittsburgh Steelers free agent list. I'll be bringing you guys the who Pittsburgh should target in free agency from other teams, who we should look at in the current free agent market to sign and bring in to upgrade our positions as my next video, and then I'll start getting into draft stuff. So I will see you guys soon. What do you think about this list? Please tell me in the comments down below. Talk about who I'd keep and cut, and what do you think of those picks, and who would you keep and cut? Please tell me in the comments. Please like, share, and subscribe to these Pittsburgh Steelers deep dives, and come back for my free agency video next week. Take care, and I'll see you guys soon.